Hello everyone, and welcome to the Deeply Renegade podcast. My name is Molly, also known as the Deeply Renegade, and I'd like to welcome you guys to episode 350. Today is Saturday, January 2nd, 2021, and I'm glad you could join me today. Let's just say that I am super proud that I got the year right, because I don't know about you guys, but it always seems like it takes a month for me to get over the year being over, but it's okay. Whatever. It's sort of like how in March I always wanted to write my birth year instead of the actual year it is. Who knows? So, it is super gloomy today, but I'm hoping that that's not going to too badly affect the podcast today. And I have changed positions slightly. I ended up rearranging the knitting room pretty much after I recorded the last episode. So there was a bed in that corner, and it's now in this corner. And the table that was over there got moved over there. And what this means is that there's a little bit more of a clear path between the door and the window now. Though the dear sweet lovable one is sad that I took away his warm spot in the sun. But I do suspect that in the summertime the bed will be the warm spot in this. The bed is now in the location where the bed is now in the location where it will be the summertime warm spot in the sun, not the wintertime warm spot in the sun. Or what would it be? Nothing like spending all of your time at home to find out exactly where the light falls at exactly what time. And then what I ended up doing was, or would it be? On New Year's Eve, I did the Great Big Stash photo, and there is a live stream. I'm not so sure about the entertainment quality of said live stream. It may just be slow TV. But what was it? It was the case where Phoenix Spins, who is Beth, at least hopped in, and maybe a few other people, I don't know, whatever. Beth was the only one who talked to me. Actually, my little brother got on too. Did he? Oh no, that might have been a different one. It's okay. Oh well. So, and that is on the YouTube channel. So if you're watching this podcast, it shouldn't be too crazy to find there. It's under my lives. And then yesterday, I did the fiber stash photo, and that also ended up involving getting everything out and then figuring out my plans for Spin the Bin 2021. So, not too crazy. I will not be doing a 2020 retrospective. Or would it be? It was very interesting when I was doing the stash photo and then coming across some skeins of handspun where it's like, oh dear, all of these skeins are so ridiculously fine, and I feel a little broken right now. So, or what would it be? And then there were also moments where it was like, oh wow, some of these games are so amazing, why have I not done anything with them yet? So I think what that means is that when I was fondling my very favoritist handspun skeins, and then the next day going in and feeling what I had in terms of fiber stash, I feel like I actually have a pretty good balance of I've purchased fibers that match up with some of my favorite handspun skeins, so that's cool. I'd be like, oh, that was great the last time I used it, I'm happy to do it more. So there was a decent amount of fiber, or what would it be, thinking about fiber, pondering about fiber, but maybe, I don't know, maybe not as much actually using it. That's okay. On the other hand, it seems like I do have a decent amount of stuff to show, so that's good. This is my last week of vacation. I ended up taking 2 weeks off to chill out, and for the most part, it's been pretty good. What would it be like? Last week was a decent amount of like catching up with various YouTube things. And then this week has been binge watching shows on Netflix. So, so far, I have, or what would it be? I started off with The Witcher. I then started The Umbrella Academy, and now the Dear Sweet Lovable and I are watching it together. I thought it was maybe a little weird for him, but he has been enjoying the dialogue and, what would it be, the match of music to what's going on with people in the show. And then I'm watching The Order, which is not good TV, but so the Dear Sweet Lovable one is not joining in that one. As you do. So, I don't know, it looks like the light's actually pretty good right now. It is so foggy today. Like, I consider there to be several different levels of fog. There is the fog is above us, in which I cannot see the giant television tower 3 blocks away from my window. There is the I can't see the next hill west of me in the city, which is Forest Hill. And then there is the fog that we have today. I don't know. We haven't yet gotten fog where I can't see the houses on the street behind my house. But it's definitely the case where I can't see the houses the next street down from my house. So it is like the world ends shortly after the house across the street. But, oh well. I can't quite tell if it's, I don't know if we'd ever get foggy enough that I couldn't see those houses, because it's not like they're super far away. But not too crazy. So I think I'll start with works in progress, for which there is one. Yeah, isn't that exciting? I don't have finished objects, but this is my only work in progress. So I just took the time to weigh this bad boy, and I think that this plan of Netflix and chill is working out pretty good for the size of this. So this is my Viajante that I'm knitting out of my Wollmeise lace yarn in the Rittersporn colorway. And I did specifically leave out the labels for all of the yarn, and now it's on the other side of the room, so whatever. So this was started out as a 325 gram skein, and I just weighed the project, and I'm at 174 grams at this point. So I'm almost through 50% of the yarn at this point, which is very exciting. So this is a pattern by Martina Bem. I am using my Anchorworks yarn caddy to dispense the yarn, and because I pulled my skein off of the little spinner mabob, I had a chance to rearrange the insides because it does make it yarn barf a little bit. So what would it be? So I got pretty close to 20% done this week, I believe. The previous week I got 3% done. But we can calculate this out. It's not too crazy. Okay, so I have 46.5%. So I got whatever, 13% done this week. Not too crazy. So in terms of knitting time, not too crazy. It's a very good mindless project. It occasionally needs me to turn on a light for a little bit to figure out if I missed my whatever is the case, or what would it be? You have to have a little bit of light to verify whether or not the row is a plain row or a decreased row, and then I generally need a little bit of light to catch the increases that I do every row on it, but it's not too crazy. So I am planning on knitting somewhere between the 20 to 25% range before beginning the lace mesh. And then I will be inserting beads into the lace mesh. So I have these very lovely, would it be sort of pearly, they're gold on the inside, sort of foggy white beads that I think will look really, really nice. They aren't pearly, but that's what the stash provided. And I think it'll be okay. So, but that is actually the only thing that has active knitting at the moment. I ended up finishing the bodies, but not stuffing my Joris the 5th and Joris the 6th. So these are stuffed animals that I have knit for my both of my sisters' impending children, due in March. Not too crazy. And so I wrapped up this guy much earlier in the week. And I wrapped up the leg, the foot, and the tail last night of this guy. So definitely have plenty of leftover yarn. So this guy was 150 grams gained, this guy was 125 grams gained, so bigger than ones I did in the past. This is Sassy Sheep Renaissance, and this is Urban Girl Yarns Virginia, I believe. And this is Peacock colorway, and this is Loud and Proud. And then my waist yarn, for some reason, is also incorporated in here, but such is life. So the only reason why I have not stuffed yet was I didn't want to take a picture in daylight of the poor little deflated Jorises before stuffing. And then I also wanted to do a quick once-over to see if I needed to do any hole closing on it. I know that there are a couple of spots at intersections where it may be nice to do a little hole closing on it. And I'll just take like short lengths of yarn and do like a quick little weave in order to get everything nice and contained. So like there are spots like, I don't even know if you can, yeah, okay, you guys can see. So there are spots like that on it where stuffing will show through if I don't if I'm not careful about it, whereas spots like this, everything is perfectly closed up. So I'm not sure why that happens exactly, and it's not like it's a big deal. There's just something about the way the stitches ended up presenting on it that made some parts work a little bit better than others. And I really think it's only by the legs that I'm noticing, maybe a little bit by the tail too. We'll see. Yeah, probably a little bit, but for some reason those intersections were a little bit more challenging. And the notes I have to add the tail to the pattern are on my first project and my Ravelry projects, so it seems like that's helped a bunch of people, which is really cool, but maybe it would be more helpful if my math was correct. So, and this is probably like a testament to just like, oh, what would it be? Like having moments where you're just sort of like tired and frazzled enough where simple mental math is just a little bit too much. So maybe I will finish doing a little bit of hole closure on this guy, and then I'll be ready to take a couple photos before the light fails. The overhead light is on right now, so I'll try. And then I can stuff these guys up and call them properly done, which would be cool. So what this means is that the next thing I need to do are hats. So, and after talking with my sisters, they would prefer beanies, preferably of a slightly bigger size. So, or I might end up doing a variety. I'm not sure. I haven't decided yet. But I apparently, the ones that I've made in the past were a little bit too small, so we'll make it work out. So that is the story there. So these are done, and I'll have to figure out where to go from there. But they're mostly done. I'll show you guys next week because I'm not going to be sending these out until I finish the rest of the stuff. But it shouldn't be too crazy. Yeah, for some reason this tail ended up being a little more stumpy than the other one. I don't know if I decreased more. I must have. Yeah, they're the same length, it just turned out really different. Oh, whatever. So, should be good. I was definitely getting pretty sick of working on these. I may need to take a break for a while. Luckily, it doesn't seem like anyone else is expecting, so that's good. I won't have to worry about it. And I guess technically speaking, I do have a finished object to share with you guys because I finished some yarn. So there we go. That was like slightly dangerous. So apparently, we're just gonna get rid of that for now. So apparently, I've been working on this since sometime in late June, but an awful lot of things jumped ahead of it while I was working on it. So this is Three Waters Farm, in the background blue colorway, that was a coordinate to, this was a coordinate to the completely twisted and arbitrary spin along that happened in, I think, the summertime. Whatever. And this is 12 ounces, 1,705 yards of a 3-ply light fingering. And I'm planning on using it with this yarn to make a hinterland. So this will be the yoke with the pretty trees and whatnot. And then this will end up being the main color. And I'm very happy with how this ended up turning out. So I managed to capture sort of the vision that I wanted with this, which was I took 4 ounces of it and spun it as top as it came in the braid. And what I noticed was that it was resulting in some pretty big color blocks. So I ended up taking the other 8 ounces and blending them together on the drum card to make a more tonal blue color. It still had sort of that variation and dimension to it, but it was much less contrasty. And so I ended up making 4 2-ounce bats. I spun them by stripping them and alternating which bat I ended up stripping from. And so this ended up resulting in a very, very lovely yarn. There are some spots in this that are a bit underplied because I spaced out and started to spin it the wrong direction and tried to fix it. I may not have been quite aggressive enough with that one. And what I also found to be very interesting about it was that, so the thing that didn't surprise me was that I ran out of my worsted prep, worsted spun singles first. But what surprised me was that the amount of singles left over from my 2 bat bobbins actually ended up being like pretty much neck and neck. So there's a little bit of 3-ply where I had 2 of one bobbin and 1 of the other, and then when I ran out of the other one, that's when I switched to chain ply for the very end. So that last little bit probably isn't as variegated, but that's not a big deal. And so should be really, really lovely to see how this comes together. I haven't yet given it its bath. I did have plenty of time. I finished this on the 31st, so glad to have wrapped this project up in time. So there's definitely, this isn't like a terrible representation of what's going on. So you can see the lighter blue, the brighter blue, and sort of the darker, more gray blue in this. Let's see if I can get it very close and still get the color about right. See, it's coming up way more gray on screen, and I don't know if that is because of the lighting or what. Like, it's definitely more of a muted blue, but not this muted, you know what I mean? It will be interesting because, like, value-wise, these colors are actually pretty close. So this is 6 ounces of Nest, which I ended up attempting to spin to be like spin cycle. So if I take a black and white photo of this, there doesn't end up being a ton of like value contrast between the yarns, but there is definitely a pretty huge hue difference between them. So I do think the color work will end up showing up really nicely. My last sweater, I tried to use a blue MC with a blue and gray contrast color, and that didn't go very well at all. But these guys, obviously, the color is very different, even if the value is about the same. So what I think is going to end up happening is I will be holding my red, yellow, orange, pink skein, and white as well, doubled in order to get the right thickness. So because this blue ended up turning out to be light fingering, so something like 550 yards per 4 ounces. But the my contrast color ended up turning out to be more just proper lace weight, so that's I don't even remember what it was at this point, but I think it's going to end up being really cool. And this does end up giving me sort of an opportunity because the white that I incorporated into it is going to be sort of that huge contrast in this, which is cool. But I think this will end up being really, really nice. Maybe a little bit out of my color palette because I normally stay away from what would be things more on the orange end, but things more on the orange end do look really good with blue. So we shall see. In terms of twist, I can definitely tell that there is like a twist difference between these. So I don't know if it would be a good idea for me to try and apply this guy before proceeding. Because that would let out some of the twist. But I don't know. It's hard to tell. But I am really happy with the yarn I ended up creating here. I think this is going to make a very excellent sweater. And we'll see whether or not I start swatching soon for it. It'll be interesting. But I do need to wash it, so there is that. And that won't fit into the bag right now. So, not too crazy. What I needed for the sweater was to have somewhere between like 1,300 to 1,350 yards, so getting 1,700 means that I will have plenty. I haven't yet decided if I will end up going with a tighter gauge for the fabric and knitting a different size. But it would be the case where I feel like I have plenty of yarn, so there is also the option of going with more positive ease. So with the Isbury sweater, I don't think it turned out that I had as much positive ease as I was hoping for in the end, which is fine. But it would be the case where I'm interested in trying again, and it seems like this is probably a good place to try. So there's that. Not too crazy there. And then, what would it be? As I mentioned earlier, I actually sat down and plotted my spin bin for 2021. So, and what would it be? It's interesting sometimes when or as you guys may notice, like I'll think about what I want to be doing with my stash for a long time before I start. It isn't very often that I end up impulsively, what would it be, casting on something with wild abandon, let's say. So when it comes to like what my spinning intentions for the year are going to end up being, like it was a case where there was a period in the summer where I was like, oh my gosh, there's so many small samples lying around. I need less of these in my life. I'm going to spin them all up as a part of Stash Dash. And I actually went so far as to take fiber that probably had no business being together and combining it. And you know what? It turned out fine. And then I was thinking about what my next stage was going to be. And so that was the case where I'm like, you know what? I have a lot of samples that I'd made in the various classes that I ended up taking with Clemis and Clemis. So I took a drum carding class one year, I took a roll egg blending board or making roll eggs on blending board class the next year, and then last January I took 2 classes, one of them on processing rare breeds and the other one on creating fractals with the drum carder. So it was like, that is what I would like to focus on next for like my spinning intentions. And so in those classes, what would it be? There was like time to make like many samples in it. So it'd be the case where each sort of theme in the class generally resulted in creating about an ounce of fiber. Like, or what would it be, roughly speaking? It was probably like an ounce an hour. So I had like 6 ounces of fiber from the blending board class, probably at least 6 ounces of fiber from my introduction to drum carding class, 5 ounces from my fractal, and actually 8 from my processing rare breeds. So just with that alone, I am already at just with that alone, I'm already at 24 ounces for projects for Spin the Bin. But there were 2 other things that I wanted to throw in there as well, which is I wanted to take the oldest braided fiber in my stash, which is a fiber optic gradient. I don't even remember where I got it at this point. I don't remember if it was a gift from my mother-in-law or if I ended up picking it myself. And then the other thing was, which is probably apropos on this very foggy day, was in the Knit San Francisco book, there is a Carl the Fog hat that you end up creating with 2 different shades of gray. And so I have decided that I want this thing, and I'd already sort of mentally set aside some Jacob to blend in order to sort of create that color. So, fiber optic gradient, very much so Molly colors. This one is navy blue to light blue. It is the ink to powder. Here is the Jacob that I want to combine together to make a Carl the Fog hat. But the thing is that this white is too white and this grayish brown is too dark, so I'm going to, what would it be? Probably, I am planning on blending them together on the drum carder, so this one will become a little bit more gray and this one will become a little bit more light. And then I have all of these different projects that I had set aside. So this guy here is merino that I ended up carding into bats and then turning into a 3-ply fractal kit. So there are Rologs of a particular color repeat. I have Diz Sliver of a certain repeat, sort of in slightly smaller groups, and then I have a big long color repeat Diz Sliver here. So this is going to make a nice 3-ounce skein. Roy and Henry really do like their BFL. So they have like a brown BFL and a white BFL, and you combine them in different ways in several of the classes. So when I can't even remember if I made Rologs in one of the classes or not, but it'd be the case where I have some two-tone white to brown Rologs. I have some that are all mixed up, and then I have like a sliver gradient in the middle. And so this is going to end up making a nice 3-ounce skein. And then from the fractal class in last January, I also have, what would it be, the two-tone Rologs, and then the two-tone sliver, which has a very slow color shift in the middle. And so this is the 2-ply in that fractal class. Let's see. This one is going to be a combination of colors that I don't like quite as much. So I have a Corriedale bat, which I think is going to be really nice to spin. And then I have these, what would it be? We made Rologs with, what would it be? Top. And so I figured that the orange and the brown would end up going really nicely together. And we ended up making 2 art bats in the original class that I ended up taking. So I took one that had pinks and teals and grays and combined it with some merino Rologs. So this one ends up being a very sort of silvery, mystical, moony thing. The Rologs are sort of blue leaning gray. And then we made art Rologs with locks in it. So it's border Leicester with mohair locks. And then this art bat has a lot of like pink silk and thread in it. So I figured that those coordinated really nicely together. And then the final thing, which is what I'm working on now, is I have 2 boards of, or 2 sets of Rologs. One set is like acid green and black. The other set is sort of like a swampy green and blue. And I believe this is either border Leicester. I bet it's border Leicester. Or Leicester long wool, I'm not sure. So this is, I think, the first bat I ever made. So, not too crazy there. I think that this one was the bat that ended up getting made sort of in a woolen fashion, and this one was made by trying to keep things straight in to the drum carder. So definitely things left to be desired with the creation of said bat, because I wasn't super duper careful about the veg matter and shortcuts in this guy. But what would it be? We're spinning up, calling it good. So this guy is going to be a 3-ounce skein as well. And then the final things. I'll just pull out one of each. Is that this is the Leicester bat that I ended up making last year with the rare breed class. And then this guy in here is the bat that I ended up making for the Florida Cracker one. So this one was a chance to practice with a fleece that was more similar to the Romney, which is currently in a garbage bag on the bedside table. And then this guy was just, it was interesting just because it was so much different than anything I had run into before. And I'm keeping these ones in the very awesome cardboard boxes with Velcro. I really, like, it is very, very nice to have everything so neat and organized. And since I kept all of the notes for everything, this means that I was able to pretty easily identify fiber content for everything that had labels in it still. And it was nice because I was able to reclaim quite a few sleeves. So the sleeves are for bat storage, and I think they ended up resulting in, or what would it be? The bats that I have come out of what has been, whatever, at least a year, sometimes up to 3, I think. So that has meant that things have stayed really nice and fluffy, nothing's matted, nothing's clumped. They're as, or would it be? It'd be the case, especially with this border lacer that I'm working with right now. What would it be? It'd be the case of, like, if I knew then what I knew now, I would have been a little bit more careful. And it's a very interesting challenge actually spinning this. We'll just see if we can this is the problem with having the camera up here, is it's a little bit harder to show. So it'd be the case where the interesting challenge with this is because it's a long wool, it doesn't need as much twist. So even though I'm spinning this on my slowest ratio, it's been very challenging not to put too much twist in this bad boy. But such is life. So it's not so bad that I'm going to switch to my jumbo plier just to have the hope of putting in less. But this is how much I ended up getting done yesterday during spinning. I don't think it'll be too long of a project. And then I am probably going to, or would it be, sort of hop through the bin in various points in order to spin stuff up. So I'm probably going to end up doing this guy next, and we'll see where things go from there. But it is exciting to be able to, what would it be? It's exciting to sort of formalize the intention that I had earlier, which is taking some of these smaller amounts of fiber, combining them together so that I get at least 2 ounces for the project, and then actually using them, evaluating how I did, how things turned out, or would it be? Because it's silly to hold on to samples for that long. And so that's sort of my hope with participating in Spin the Bin, is putting a little bit of structure on my intentions about, like, okay, here's what's going on, here's how I want to organize all of this, and sort of methodically sort of stepping through some of my intentions. Another way that I ended up doing that for myself was I actually swapped some of the order in the stash. So I still have Woolmisa here and here, but I've also thrown in some other yarn in those bins as well, because I ended up opening up a decent portion that part of the stash with all of the Woolmisa projects that I've done this year. Then out of frame, I actually have my sweater quantities in the corner of my eye. So while last year was like, yay, I'm reunited with my handspun, maybe I should use some of it. Like, I'm definitely feeling right now the, like, holy cow, why did you buy so many sweater quantities in 2019? Maybe you should knit some of them up. So I've moved my sweater quantities to my peripheral vision so that I can see it. But after fondling all of the handspun, there's definitely some excitement there of like, why have I not knit with these luscious silk blends yet? Why? Oh well, who knows? Who knows what I was thinking? And then fiber-wise, I didn't end up doing too much mixing up with how I ended up organizing everything. So I have all of my 4-ounce bags all together in a bin. I have all of the fiber that I've dyed myself in a bin with some other bits and bobs. I guess one big change that I ended up doing was I did put all of my silk blends into a bin altogether, and then I have another one that has much more of like the natural wool all together in one spot too. So just something maybe a little bit different. That way maybe having it sorted that way makes it a little bit easier to find sometimes. Possibly. I don't know. Or it's just a sorting exercise that brings me joy. I am down to 1.5 Ziploc bags of fingering weight scraps, so that was a 2020 intention that actually did come true. So as a part of putting together the fingering held triple rainbow wrap, like that really did end up opening up a lot of space in the stash, which I find to be very exciting, which is good. And I will probably end up rating my Woolmisa scraps, for lack of a better word, to do the baby hats, though I'm gonna start with this and see how far it gets me. As you do. But yeah, no, the other thing that I ended up doing was I ended up sort of separating out my wool from my not wool, and I ended up separating out my luxury fingering from my sock fingering. I just figured that that ended up being sort of a good, or would it be, that ended up sort of being a good boundary to put in there, because I wouldn't end up incorporating my luxury blends with my sock blends for whatever projects I decide to end up doing with that stuff. And for some reason, or would it be, it felt a little bit like the stuff that I had intended for shawls seemed to be overflowing before and isn't as much, and I don't know if that's just because I ended up shifting some of it into what had been for myself only bins. Not sure there. And I think the only other big change that I ended up doing was I kept some of my, would it be the virgin wool, not merino sock yarn, sort of hidden towards the back of my sock yarn, and this year I ended up just sort of putting it front and center. So, do I have intentions of knitting this year? Maybe? I don't know. I figured the thought process being out of sight, out of mind, so if it's in sight, I will think about it. And some of those, whatever, scratchy wool sock yarns are now some of like the oldest yarn in the stash at this point, or certainly the oldest. Like my oldest full skein is actually a skein of Madeline-Tosh. That was a gift from my mother-in-law. She had gotten like a sweater quantity, and that was one of the odd ones out, so she ended up passing it on to me. But yeah, no, I still don't know what I'm going to do with it. It's not like, or would it be, when it comes to this stash right now, there's just so little worsted weight, like, or would it be, on days like today, I really want worsted weight, but I have none. Certainly not enough to add up to anything significant. So, oh well. But, I know, I'd be interested to hear from you guys about whether or not it would be fun to do another, like, oldest game knit along. Would it be, that is always something that I ponder about is, like, okay, what has been around for a long time, and why hasn't it had its day in the sun yet? So feel free to comment on if you guys are interested in something like that, because it seems like a decent sort of plan. Let's see. I do not anticipate any changes to the recording schedule for the foreseeable future. I was contemplating recording, what would it be, like earlier in the week, and then it was like, I guess I should move my poor little marker. I don't know, I managed to get a couple of inches this week on this project, so that's pretty good. It happens sometimes. It's also going to probably be interesting just because, what would it be? At the very least, this is going to get a bit of monogamous attention until I cast on a different small project. This probably, I don't know, I'm finding the odds that I'm going to cast on a couple of quickie hats high, because I really just want to get it done, so I don't need to think about it anymore. Like, I'm not really into, or whatever, I am not a big gift knitter, even though right now everything is gift knits. I would like to get on to more fun stuff for me. So it's more like, not that I'm complaining about using the yarn that I am, but it would be the case where it's sort of a eat your vegetables moment when it comes to, I said I was going to do this, and what would it be, at least get it done well before the deadline and send it on its merry way. It's sort of the thought process that I have right now. Yeah, the odds are high that I'll end up stuffing the dragons today, because then I won't need to think about it anymore. That's cool. What would it be? Oh, not too crazy. Okay, the coffee's all gone. I definitely feel the need for more coffee. There is slight concern that I'm going to struggle to get back onto a normal sleep schedule again. What would it be? But that with Netflix, you can definitely keep some incredibly odd hours. Or would it be? There's just something about after using other services and then adding this one to the mix, to recognize the choices that they ended up making that manipulate you into doing what they want? Or would it be the case like, ooh, that's slick? um, or would it be it's impressive to evaluate it after using the other one? Be like, wow, they're just hollow imitations of what they're doing here. Wow. Not that I'm complaining too much, it's just, would it be professional admiration for what they're doing, even if I don't necessarily agree. As you do. So, what a weird place to end, but whatever. So, with that, I hope you guys have a lovely week, and I look forward to talking to you guys next week. So, take care, guys. Bye-bye.